It's Thursday, the 26th of March. You're watching the live show from Travel Massive, hosted from Dublin, produced from Bulgaria and Tasmania, but with guests joining us from Canada, Israel, and all the way over in the United States in Berkeley. I'm Kevin O'Shaughnessy. I'm the co-founder of CityHook and the host of Dublin Travel Massive here, along with Mark Lanahan. I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you today. We've got three great speakers. I'll introduce you quickly, but we'll jump right into it with Johannes in just a second. We've had one hell of a week. I can't believe we're at live show number 4 already. We started this as an effort to try and cope with the COVID-19 outbreak and the impact on the travel business. Just a reminder, 1 in 10 jobs in the world are the travel business. And when the demand is 0, that's 1 in 10 jobs that are at risk. In the last week, we've seen the US rapidly becoming the center of attention for the number of cases in the outbreak. The tragedy in Spain is absolutely gut-wrenching, not to speak of Italy, of course. It is one hell of a tragedy that just keeps on happening on a human level. These shows are more about how they impact the humans in the travel business and how we're coping with it. And we'll be talking to 3 different founders and co-founders of technology companies all over the world to talk about how it's impacted them and how they're coping with it. We call this episode, as a result, the Shockwave. You can join us live on YouTube. You'll find this on the Travel Massive podcast shortly after it's done. But if you want to chat with us, come on over here to Zoom. You'll find all of the details over on travelmassive.com. Our 3 speakers, Johannes Koeppel, you're the CEO of Wetravel. Sense of what Wetravel is, and then we'll talk a little bit about how your last couple of weeks have gone.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Wetravel is a payment and booking platform for multi-day travel. Think of custom educational trips, yoga retreats, etc. Really easy way to collect payments, have installment payments, an easy way to integrate into your website. It's similar to Eventbrite, but for multi-day travel.
You know, it's as much a platform more than anything else. You were telling us before we joined the live stream here. You're not Get Your Guide per se. You're not a marketing company. You're the operations, the glue that makes the payments part works. Because when you think about multi-day trips, they're quite long, they're quite complicated. They involve parties of people. So to tame payments there is quite an achievement. So you're really at the center of the transaction there for multi-day tours.
Correct.
Are you in the 100 to 0 category as well? How has the impact been for you guys?
Yeah, we absolutely are. We have seen the beginning of the year was a great start for everyone in multi-day travel. You know, bookings were up. The whole industry was pretty enthusiastic. And that was really mid-February that we started seeing slow drops. And by early March, it really became a trickle. By now, there's hardly any of our over 3,000 organizers that's still adding any new trips on the website, right? Or that is still old trips coming in, but we definitely foresee.
So your demand, if you think about it, the actual organizers of the trips themselves, the consumers, but the actual producers, the tour operator, that's the wrong word.
But yes, it's small and medium-sized travel companies that either sell trips or put together packages, or we also have a lot of DMCs that actually do use us that are in the destination countries.
Gotcha. You know, we've had a great few years. The last real crisis we had in travel is 2008, 2009, the economic crisis, maybe Zika. Okay, just to be thorough about it there. But we've had a few good years. And all of a sudden we were into, like you said, a great January, almost a great February. But was there a watershed moment you can remember, or was it just in the background? You had all this news coming out of China and all of a sudden you glued 2 and 2 together. What was the watershed moment?
I forgot exactly what day it was. It probably was around February 18 when Italy closed, right? When it became clear that all our Italy tours are going to get canceled for the foreseeable future. And this is, I think, when it hit us. This is when we started taking measures and realized that the future is going to look very, very, very differently than the past.
So you have a component that's Italy, of course, and you'll see the signal there. Was that a large proportion of your market?
It wasn't, no, but we just realized if Italy is going that way, the rest of the world is going to follow suit in a month, and that's exactly what happened, right? We saw one country after the other shut down, one trip after the other get canceled.
So I want to talk a little bit about what happened in the meantime. So you have a team there. Were they put straight into managing cancellations, managing disputes and chargebacks, all that kind of stuff? Can you give me a sense of what the team was doing for the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I think about that, this has been only been 2 weeks. It's absolutely insane. I mean,
No,
it's probably the thing
crazy.
I'm most proud of is that just the way that the team managed to adjust, right? For example, I mean, our sales team went from acquiring a new customer and telling everybody how great our product is to complete account managers working with over 1,500 organizers, just counseling them, hey, what cancellation policy do you have in place? How can you help your users? Here are the best practices that we're seeing across our users, and just taking on a completely different role, right? It's the same for our product team. We had to really rapidly implement a couple of key features just to be able to cope with the current situation.
So engineering is all of a sudden building a product for kind of like the anti-pattern,
Yeah,
giving money back rather than taking money in.
exactly.
Uh,
How can we facilitate refunds? How can we make sure that funds that already have been paid out, users can easily get them into the platform again to do the refunds directly on the platform?
yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy.
Like when you think about it, you have, when you're a company like yours, you have to be running at volume.
Yeah,
There's no such
absolutely.
thing as, you're not a mom and pop operation. You're a
No,
technology company. You have to be running at volume. So
absolutely.
all of a sudden, if you've got a volume of cancellations or refunds to process, that's an awful lot of human you need. So either the platform is configured to deal with those straight up,
Yeah.
or so wow,
Yeah, I mean, we're transacting
that's
hundreds of millions a year, right? So you can imagine the volume of payments that we're refunding. Luckily, most of it is absolutely automated. But nevertheless, there's always questions. People have maybe canceled their credit card, the refund doesn't go through. There's definitely a lot of customer support that goes now simply into refunding and making sure, yeah, things are going smoothly for our users.
you're kind of a when you're a company like yours, you're in the middle of a
Yeah,
transaction, really. Now, if I understand can you tell me, you explained off mic, but I just want to make sure I don't say something stupid.
sure.
Can you explain how your model works just from a cash flows perspective,
Absolutely.
for our viewers and listeners? Because I just want to show exactly where you fit in, and all the moving parts.
Yeah, so we are really a payment platform for these small and medium-sized travel organizers. They collect the payments for us. They keep it in their Wetravel account until they either want to transfer it to their own accounts, they want to transfer it directly to a vendor. We do international wire transfer, so we basically have kind of a TransferWise product built into the system. We also have a Wetravel credit card where you can load your funds onto a credit card, and you can also send it directly to vendors. So we're really kind of your central turning point for your money flows. So we are in the center of it, and now it's in the center of the storm, so to say.
You're like a switch for the funds at the end of the day. You need that
Correct.
flexibility to suit some types of operator.
Correct.
It could be a virtual credit card or a physical credit card or a something. You need an instrument that people understand. It might be a
Yeah.
bank transfer. It might be, I don't know. I'm sure you've had the blockchain conversation on the whiteboard on a couple of occasions,
For
but there
sure.
are different instruments that people use. So when a refund comes in, you're
Yeah.
sitting looking at looking at all of these, outputs for it. Like, it has to come from this account and go into this account for the end user. That's got to be messy. There's something that I heard through the grapevine that a certain, I think it's your payment processor, is in the same boat. People don't really realize that those air miles that you're buying, or that you're getting for free, they come from the fees that are charged on a credit card transaction.
Yeah.
The merchant, the guy selling, the guy who's taking the credit card number off you, is paying that 3 or 4 or sometimes 5%
Yeah.
just to give you your air. So there's no such thing as free money. This isn't some wonderfully executed piece of financial engineering. The merchant pays it. It's a fee. So,
Yep.
some of the payment platforms are more flexible than others. I've heard, I hear you with Stripe.
Yep.
Have they reversed their decisions on that recently? They used to refund fees, but that's gone, is it?
Yeah. So they about a year and a half ago changed their policy. Um, we mentioned this before the show already, right? Our situation is pretty peculiar because we don't only have no revenue, we currently have actually negative revenue because we always stuck to the policy that we'll refund all fees if somebody has to do a refund. It felt like the right thing to do, and we only had 1 or 2% refunds anyway. Now, of course, we have way more refunds, but it just seems wrong to be changing that policy now. We're trying to save our users, right? We are in a very fortunate position. We're VC backed. We have a very large cash buffer. We adjusted our spend so that we can survive 18 months with absolutely no revenue. But this is a huge luxury that we're in, right? And most of the users we work with, we want to continue working with them once this is over. And so our number one priority is to make sure they stay alive.
Okay. So that means that not putting any friction in place, not stopping any refunds and so on. Is there a risk, though, that just on a general level, I really don't want to talk about it in your own situation here, but there's one thing that absolutely, I'll tell you what, there's few things I hate more in the world than a chargeback. You know, it's the, and don't get me wrong, Stripe make it really easy to love chargebacks, but I still hate them with an unbridled passion, and it gets the emotion going in the team when we get one, no matter what it is and no matter what level it's at. Fortunately, we've been lucky in the past, but it's still, every time one comes in, it's visceral.
Yeah.
There's rumors going around that there's an awful lot of that going on at the moment.
For sure.
What does that mean for credit card processing in the future? Because if there's, you know, if we get past 1%, we're no longer able to operate as a platform with credit card payments. What happens when the travel industry emerges from this? Nobody can take credit card payments.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really tricky. As you mentioned, the original philosophy was with every payment processor, once you get above 1% in disputes or chargebacks, you just get shut down. The reality is every single travel company in the world right now has higher chargeback rates than this, or a vast majority of travel companies have, including all the big ones, right? Including all the big OTAs, etc. That's, for example, the reason why Booking.com is now allowing free refunds for pretty much everybody, angering the hotels. But it's probably also because they realize otherwise they're just going to get so many chargebacks and lose the majority of them anyway. I don't know where we're going, right? We're in active conversation with Stripe. We're a relatively large user for them. We're in active conversation. Of course, they have no interest in shutting us off now, because otherwise this whole chargeback risk just gets transferred over to them. It's much better for them to have us actually help our users avoid chargebacks in the first place. I mean, the one rule is the best way to win a chargeback is not to get it in the first place. And there's various ways to do this, and that's what we're focusing on.
Talk a little bit about the aftermath on this.
Yeah.
Maybe give me a sense of what, you know, your own figures look like. You said you've got the buffer there. You're comfortable with numbers to give you enough of a runway to survive. How long do you have to survive for before we're back to normal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, our worst case is by now 18 months.
Wow.
And that's very long, right?
Yeah.
But I do foresee a situation where, you know, we'll have these restrictions in place for 2-3 months, then they're lifted again, then people start collecting payments again for a few trips. But then, I don't know, the flu season hits, October gets bad again, we shut down all the schools for another month or two. And I think this kind of uncertainty would be extremely toxic for the whole industry. Because we are taking payments so much in advance. However, I do believe once we're actually out of it, demand will massively spike, and we're actually back to pre levels relatively soon, or at least close enough.
Not to make light of it in any way, there's an awful lot of tragedy in the world, but I have to, it made me smile. But apparently when they lifted the quarantine in Wuhan, there was a line around the block at the civil registry office while people filed for divorce. So quarantine has a psychological effect on all of us. You know, I see a big spike in travel booking as a way to, you know, ease some of the pressure on relationships that'll naturally form over the couple of months ahead. So I'm not particularly worried that there will be a bouncing back. You know, we're above trend. Well, we were above trend already. I think we're okay. It's just really a question of time. I mean, what's your optimistic case then if it's 18 months?
Optimistic case is, for me, is 6 months now.
6 months.
Some of our users used to talk about 3 months. Now, honestly, I think 6 months is really the first time when we really have large or just group trips happen again.
So you've got what it takes. You've done the numbers. You've got the
Yeah.
buffer. And like, I'm imagining you get through all of the processing to do with the cancellations, the refunds, all of that hard work.
Yeah.
I still got to ask you, what are you going to do for 6 months?
I know. It's a really legitimate question.
Like,
right?
do you go out and work on your golf? I don't know. What do you do?
As a technology company, of course, there's always the product. We have a huge roadmap that we want to get through in the next 1.5 years, and we can accelerate that. So that's good, right? And we'll come out of it with a much stronger product. It's really a question, how are we going to use our incredible salespeople in the best possible way? Because of course you can start building a relationship. And the crazy thing is, we're getting more demos than ever before, in the sense that people have time, people are not selling, especially in the next months. They will be able to look at new technologies, especially in a sector like custom group travels. For example, if you think of educational travel all over the world, high school travel, etc. We're talking often about legacy companies that have not really made the switch to the 21st century yet.
That's interesting.
Still, of course, you'll have these conversations, but it will not translate into revenue yet. That means also not necessarily the commission for salespeople. So that will be tricky to manage as a team.
Johannes, come on. I'm reading a huge amount of optimism in that.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
Am I wrong? I mean, it's great lead gen. Because you're pushing stuff into the funnel. I mean,
I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced that we as a company will come out stronger at the other end, because there's a couple of factors here. If you're a small startup, right, it doesn't really matter if the market afterwards is going to be 20% or less. I think I did the math. Even at hundreds of millions that we're doing now, we're still 0.0 something of the whole package travel industry worldwide. So there's plenty of room for us to grow, right, when we come out of this. I just want to make sure we don't lose half of our existing users in the meantime. Right? That's what I'm really worried about. That's what keeps me up at night.
Do they look to you for leadership? Do they look to your team for leadership?
It's hard.
Are you hearing different stories coming back?
It's tricky, right? Because we are kind of caught between, what's the English expression, a rock and a hard place. Because on the one hand, we have to put certain measures in place to protect user funds, end user funds, and to avoid unnecessary chargebacks. So we had to change our payout policy to, hey, we can only pay you out after your trip is over. This is something that all major companies have done, right? Eventbrite has done that. Every payment processor is pushing these kind of limits or reserves onto travel companies, because everybody realizes you shouldn't be collecting payments for trips that are happening in the next 2 or 3 months, because you'll have to refund them eventually anyway. So we're placing these holds on that can be used for refunding, but not necessary to pay suppliers. So it's a really tricky situation for people in the payment processing space in travel right now, because I can either react by placing a hold or just massively spiking your rates, which is the other thing that we have payment processors seem doing. So that's also doesn't seem like the right way to go.
Can I ask if you know, even if you need to talk generally about this?
Sure.
It's not the specifics that are really interesting. It's just the more macro situation, I think. But you're worried about losing your current user base, your current customers, your partners. There's two ways of interpreting that. There's the loss of, there's the loss of them as your customer, but they might go out of business.
Yeah.
How many will go out of business?
I have no idea. Right. I think I had a conversation with somebody, but another CEO in a similar space, but a much larger company about this. It shall remain unnamed, but they have been in that business for much longer, and they are in the day tours and activity space. Mm. And he's just cited me some examples. For example, they had, they have more experience with this because they had the hurricanes that, for example, in some parts of Florida, just wiped out the entire infrastructure to do tours and day tours, right? And he said every time when this crisis were happening, we thought we lost all our users there, they would never bounce back. And you look at all these stats that come out, if this continues for 3 months, I think Germany just released a stat, 47% of all tour travel agencies are going to be gone. And he just pointed out, look, historically, that has not been the case. Yeah, things are different now because it's happening to everybody at the same time. So we can't really say for sure. But normally the alarm bells that are rung during the crisis ring louder than what they actually should have. And I hope that's true.
You know, I'm going to come back to something positive in just a second,
Sure.
but a question from the floor.
Hmm.
Are your staff safe? Are they okay? Have you had to have, have you had to put some names on spreadsheets already, or are you guys going to be okay for the time being?
We had to do pretty pretty drastic cost saving measures, but we grew so rapidly in the last year. We grew from roughly 20 to 80 that it was not a huge shock to the core team. However, the one big advantage that we have as a company is we already before this crisis had 4 different offices and various remote people on top of that. We have offices in San Francisco, Scottsdale, Arizona, Amsterdam, and Baku in Azerbaijan. So sitting on a Google Meet all day is not something new for our employees. So the whole working from home has luckily not harmed us as a company. It's something that we're already used to. It's more that everybody else is now doing the same thing as well, which is interesting.
Look, Johannes, if there's one thing I'm taking, I'm a silver lining guy,
Yeah.
and I am just, so excited that your sales guys are able to fill the funnel. I'm really taking a nice dose of positivity out of that, and of course, who can forget that the product guys finally get to work through some of the backlog and work on new features. So
Exactly.
it sounds like you're going to be in a good position coming out of this. So
Absolutely.
I have to thank you for sharing a tiny little perspective of good news in there, in spite of it being such a miserable month of February and March for you. Johannes, thanks for joining us. I'm going to move to Hamed in just a second, but I have one more question for you towards the end, so
Sure.
don't run away. If you've just joined us, you're watching the live show from Travel Massive. This is a response to the COVID-19 outbreak and how the travel business is coming together to work on it. It's produced by the Travel Massive team, and it's we interview as many people as possible to share their story about how they're reacting to it. This episode is number 4. We've been at this for 4 weeks already, called Shockwave, and how the impact has really taken some companies by complete surprise. The variables that are being thrown at us are just absolutely outstanding. Hamed Al-Khabaz, you're my next guest. Thank you for joining us here all the way from Montreal. I know you're snowed in already, but does that mean that you guys are naturally in quarantine? Or are you able to spot the difference? What's it like for you there?
Yeah, we're used to this, but it definitely looks like an apocalypse out there. Apocalypse, sorry. There's no one on the streets. People are taking quarantine very seriously in Montreal.
So I won't pretend I know the first thing about Montreal. I think I know the language enough to bluff my way by there. But is it like Toronto, where you have to clean the driveway of snow and your section of the footpath every morning? Is that
Pretty
still
much, but
so?
much worse than Toronto for sure.
Okay, so what's it like there at the moment? You must be snowed up to the first and second floor.
Well, no, it's end of March, beginning of April. It's starting to melt. It's like plus
That's all
5
right.
degrees, so it's okay.
Spring
It's
has
doing good.
landed.
Yes,
Sorry for the banter, and I know I had to make a little bit light of it there, but just to
keep it
introduce
coming.
where you're from, it's quite snowy. What do Stay 22 do?
Sure. So Stay 22 helps event goers find places to sleep for their next event. We do that by embedding our map directly on the web pages of ticketing platforms and event discovery platforms. And we usually offer hotels and Airbnbs at the moment to the event goers.
So it's kind of like a way to complete your trip, knowing that the core of the activity is an event or a concert or something.
Yeah.
You guys are the kind of the ancillaries, the other bits that you might do around it,
Right.
particularly accommodation. You were saying one of your festivals this year was South by Southwest.
Yeah.
You
So
guys
we
must
were
be doing well. I mean, that's
no,
good going, right?
it got canceled pretty early. I think it's one of the first times that South by Southwest gets canceled, and they bring in around $400 million of capital just on that city between those 10 days for
Wow.
Austin.
Wow.
So that's huge for the city and for us to that we kind of a lot of cancellation happened at the end.
Okay. I mean, you're ultimately within Stay 22. You're the CTO.
Yep.
The product, though, is a consumer product. It's very much a consumer product. Your relationships are B2B, though, so you partner with the events to
Exactly.
get something that's very interactive in front of a consumer. how does your model work? Just to give a sense of how cash flows work, just very, very broadly speaking, are you, is it referral revenue? Are you a marketplace like Johannes and Wetravel there?
Right, it's definitely a commission based through referrals. As you said, it's B2B to C. So we
Okay.
work with a partner, let's say Bands in Town, which is like a event discovery platform. And then in all their pages where they sell a ticket for an event, our map would be there. And the end users of Bands in Town would then see our map and then browse through the selection of hotels and whatnot. And then once they get redirected to Booking, Airbnb, and if they end up doing the transaction, we then split the revenue with Bands in Town, with the platform, with us, and the hotel.
Now, you surprised me on our pre-call. You actually shocked me. Now, this was a question. If there was ever a time to hear how, and look, there's some. I have to give some balance to this, but I'll give the silver lining stuff first.
Sure.
You work off referral revenue, meaning you send an invoice to the person who benefited from your referral at the end of the month. Even at a time like this, you're getting paid.
Yeah, we're getting paid, but we did get a bit of a warning message saying, you know, it might be a bit delayed, but it's all automatic and it's coming in into our bank very easily.
So, you know, obviously there's still a downturn, but, you know, the machinery is still there. People are honoring their commitments to you.
Absolutely.
And they respect you as a
And we do the same back to our partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just on that though, you mean like your revenue is ultimately there's still one driving number. Like for us, it's flights landing. That's our driver. For City Hook, for you guys, it's the number of events happening and the number of bookings going through.
Right.
How's business?
So as you know, supply chain, the first two that got affected is travel and gatherings for an event. And this is exactly what we work with. So it got completely destroyed and there's almost, I wouldn't say zero bookings. Somehow still people are booking for some reason. Maybe they have hope in August or November for these events that are not canceled yet. So we're getting a bit of bookings on those. And yeah, I mean, there's been a few initiatives to help people get them back and give them hope to book. Things like, here's a full refund for any hotel that you book. So you're going to be safe. Just book it. It's probably cheap for now because they're desperate.
Yeah.
So we've done some moves to get people booking.
Have you found your engineering team a little bit like Johannes there? Have you found the engineering team working on kind of anti-pattern style features to help cope with things like cancellations, stuff like that? Or what has been the impact on you in an engineering way?
Yeah, I mean, for the first 2 weeks, or at least like the last 2 weeks, for example, where COVID really hit, and you can see like the whole quarantine, the whole world events. So people just knew about this very much so than what was going on in February or January. And we had to do a few initiatives to kind of let the people know, about their travels, about their events, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, you're working with travel. Unless it's a huge pivot that we're doing, it's just going to be travel, and only time can kind of help in that cause.
So what's your own forecast looking like? Do you see it as a 3 month, a 6 months, or 18 months kind of impact on you guys?
Sure. So here's the thing. Startups have to prepare usually for 18 to 24 months. So you have to assume you're going to get around $0 of revenue for the next 18 months and kind of like drive according to that. So if you need to cut costs down and other things, that's usually what we're thinking about. Now, I do hope within the next 6 months, just like Johannes said, I hope it's going to come back and we're going to be back to full throttle. But even if it comes back in 6 months, I don't think travel will be the same. I think it's going to be a bit different. It's going to be like a dystopian feature, just like how we're seeing today. But I feel like if you're going to go to an event, you might be like, there's going to be an app that's going to check your health. Have you had COVID before? Or are you wearing a mask? You need to wear a mask now. It might be a bit different. I don't know.
You caught me with my microphone off.
Sorry about that.
What is the reality of those 18 months for you guys? Is your team able to survive that long? Are you looking at different revenue streams? What's been the first thing that hit you guys?
For sure, we had to do some layoffs, and it really, you know, it hurts my heart to get rid of great people. They've been helping us. They've been here with us for a while actually, and you know, going through this is not, it's not the funnest of things. But I hope they understand, and you know, sometimes it's just the way the reality is, and if we need to kind of focus more on the product, as Johannes said, you know, we have a backlog of things, and things are like, they're more quiet than before. There's not a lot of cross-department requests or requests from our partners that want to like have specific features. It's finally time to, you know, do some refactoring and get back into like the new features we always wanted to build. And for sure, it's going to be a product play once the market recovers.
What was the moment where, you know, you had to make that call? Was it in the last 2 weeks? Was it as early as February? When was the signal for you guys?
I think so. Actually, we were doing good in our. If we go into our graphs, and this is actually a funny story, anecdotally. My co-founder Andrew got an email 2 months ago, like really early January, probably first week of January. He got an email from one of our advisors. He said, "It would be good if this year you have the same amount of revenue as last year, just the exact same. That would be a really good sign. You guys are doing a healthy company." And we've been doing 400% year over year for the past 4 years. And we're like, what is he talking about? The same, nah, we're going to crush that number. And then 2 months later, we're still growing week over week, 15%. Up until the last week of February, we peaked there. And then there was a sudden drop like we've never seen before. It's like starting March 1st, it's just dropped like as if we just started this startup 2 weeks ago, something like that. That's how bad it went. All our partners just lost all their traffic they had. And that's, you know, now we're like, oh, fuck, man, we better have the same amount of revenue as last year. That would be a good sign after all. So prophecy is true. So that's where we are right now.
So you've kind of, I don't want to say hibernation because you guys are still quite active. You're still quite busy.
Yeah.
The company's still there. You're still trading. You're still busy. So,
yeah.
You know, it's not quite hibernation. But the question I have for you is more of a philosophical one, right? Let's just assume we're into worst case scenario thing. And it won't be an overnight. Somebody's not going to switch on the light, you know, and demand will just pour back into the business. It'll trickle through different channels for different purposes. It'll start trickling back to where it was and hopefully keep on growing. But 18 months is a long time to wait. Do you think that business models will still be compatible for you guys in 18 months' time? Will people want to engage with you the same way? You know, will your original business plan still be valid in 18 months?
That's definitely something we're thinking about. And you know, as I mentioned before, like event and travel got hit first. And we'll only know that event and travel is going to recover once we know schools are going to open again, and gyms are going to open again, and restaurants are going to open again. And that's where we're kind of thinking about, like, if we start offering restaurant reservations and parkings and things like there are local services for the event goers that are going to these events, we'll have like an early lead in terms of like how we offer to like the services that we offer to our end users. So right now we're just doing like hotels and Airbnbs mostly, but kind of offering restaurant reservations and parkings would be a really good move to get that going within the next 3 months. Because
you guys can expand your
exactly. We're going to expand
revenue touch points
exactly
in the meantime. That's interesting. So you guys are really geared up to becoming, you know, a great way to earn money for the event organizers when they come back online. It's an extra source of cash for them. So you know, all the more reason to strengthen in the meantime. So that's the survival and the story in the meantime. You guys weren't really impacted in the same way from a payments perspective. You know, what are the event organizers though telling you? What, like, is there panic? Is there anxiety? What's it like on the, you know, demand side for you guys? What are you hearing?
I mean, for sure, they had to go through layoffs also. They have to cut their own costs. I mean, they're not selling tickets, so what can they do? And some of them are looking into live streaming. It's kind of fun. I've seen a few. It's picking up a lot in Instagram. Music live streaming, artists are doing that. Some even just normal conferences with speakers, they're going into Twitch, and there's a few things that are happening over there. Although it's not as live as just being there and having the whole experience, but
People that
it's
go to
picking
the
up.
conferences know that it's not just the content that brings
Exactly.
people there. You know, it's the
It's a network.
the hallway conversations,
Yeah.
the bar, the restaurants. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the what you guys do around the event is more to do with the event than the event itself. So,
Right.
it's not the same though. You know,
It's not the same.
but
But we're hopeful. No, we're actually hopeful, because the thing is, I mean, I'll be echoing a bit of what Johannes said again. And look, they at some point they just won't have that much to do. You know, they went through all the layoffs, they cut their costs, they're doing some live stream, and then what? You know, business has to move. They have to close some deals. They have to talk to artists, and artists, like, they don't know what to do. All they can do is prepare for the future. So in 6 months, 9 months, whatever is they see when COVID is going to recover, that's their only hope, and that's what we're kind of banking on, that they're going to prepare for the future. And at some point, people would want to travel for their event, and people are going to come and flock. It's going to just kind of give you some travel boom or some event boom, that people just want to party and be together again. And we want to be there and help them for that and prepare for the future.
is there something, like, speaking as a CTO, engineering hat on here, is there something you wish you had done, or you wish you didn't have to deal with right now, from before the crisis, now that you're in the middle of it?
That's an interesting question.
Like, you know, a good CTO has a nice long list of technical debt. There'll
Right.
be an even longer one he hides from the rest of the team, or she hides from the rest of the team. So look,
Right.
there's technical debt there, the bugs that need to be fixed, the shortcuts you took, they have to be undone.
Yeah.
So imagine, like, all that aside, like, is there something you wish you had prepared for, or you wish you didn't have had to do since the outbreak occurred?
No, not really. I mean, I wish our local services, like the restaurant reservations and parkings, were live before COVID hits, just to kind of like get a safe land, see if like the local people can still reserve and stuff like that. I think it's going to be huge, reservations online for restaurants, because now you can only do like half capacity before it got completely banned in some regions. And if it's half capacity, you kind of have to reserve before, instead of going there and then seeing, oh, it's full, I can't come in. So I think that's just going to be like a huge thing in the coming months because of COVID, and we want to be ready for that.
Hamed, I'm going to come back to you at the end. I have
Absolutely.
one more tough question for you, but I do want to bring Yael in before we get there. Yael, Farjun, you're from, as far as we're concerned in Travel Massive, you're our main chapter leader over in Shanghai normally, but you join us today from somewhere near the Jordan and Egypt border for Israel in the south of the country. Okay, I need to ask, what was it like leaving Shanghai and going home? What? Tell me the story of how you got there.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know if I want to go, because when I left, it was the situation started getting better in Shanghai, and worse in Israel. So I didn't know if I want to do that. But my family really wanted me to be close by. And to be honest, at the moment, I don't really work. So I went on a plane and I missed my connecting flight. And they've been great giving me a new flight. And so I've made it here in around 36 hours-ish. Yeah.
Okay, well, look, there's we'll save the details of that for the screenplay version of the story, but for now, I think everybody understands the pain of the 36-hour homecoming flight. You needed to be around family. The story of how you get there, though, I do want to probe this a little bit. Talk briefly about what the China Click Go story was. Your B2C, what was China Click Go?
So our dream was to bring more tour options, better tour options, daily daily tours, activities for people traveling China. We've been in the industry for about 10 years before, and then started China Click Go in the midst of it, realizing that people don't really see the China that we know and that we're familiar with. So that was the idea, to start a marketplace and help people book their own tours, day tours, online. And that's what we were before the virus hit. Yeah.
You guys were very much an inbound product, so a type of, if I could, I think it's accurate to say that you were kind of like a get your guide for the Chinese market, for people arriving in
Yeah.
China. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys would be working with all of the different local providers, packaging up their content, getting all of the information ready, the photos, the usual kind of pre-sale kind of stuff that you need to do
True.
to sell a tour. But you operated like a marketplace, so you were doing the transactions as well. I think we can all relate to the fact that it for a time at the beginning of the year wasn't really an attractive place to think about going to China. If you can't go to China, you therefore don't have a product. What was the turning point for you guys, though, when you saw that signal? Because it must have been total a drop off in demand.
Oh, yes. When everything started for us, it was Chinese New Year, January 24th, even I can say. When they started locking down areas in China, we realized, okay, this is not going to be easy. It's not going to end soon. But we were still hoping that, at least at the beginning, that it will stay within China. And living in China, we were pretty confident, knowing that they will deal with it probably fast, which turned out to be what happened. Now China, almost 2 months after this started, is going into normal, back into normal, or what we say the new normal. But you can see tourism attractions and local tourism providers are opening up and starting doing some business. So we knew it's going to be a limited time thing. But we also knew that if it's going to go out of China, then it will be a big deal, and especially for us. So when we realized that this is not going to be just 2-3 months thing, was about mid-February, when numbers in Europe started rising.
Because on one level, you could, we can base assumptions on what happened during SARS version 1, in 2003, 2004. It was largely contained to Asia, so once people could trust that they could go, at least they'd be able to fly. But right now, people aren't even able to leave their home, let alone their country, or fly anywhere. So the idea of flying to a better or a healthier, or the new China is something that we can't imagine for the time being, or that we have to imagine for the time being, I should say. So that really meant that your market literally dropped overnight. Were people still pre-booking though around Chinese New Year, February, or did it just completely stop overnight?
It almost stopped overnight, because people were at least talking with us or looking forward, trying to see if maybe we recommend them to book for, let's say, April, May. They were trying to look for insider's insight of when do we think this will be over, so that they can plan their trips to. Some people were talking about the summertime, September even. That, of course, all of it dropped, and all of it was canceled by around mid-February.
So what does that mean though for you guys? Was it a decision to hibernate and to wait the whatever 18 months we've been talking about on this call? Or have you talk about what decisions you've made since demand went, maybe, and I'll let you tell the story.
So when it all started, and we were still, hopeful that we'll be able to manage this through, we said, let's just hibernate. Let's try to do something to keep, contact with our travelers, kind of like showing them what China is doing and how things are done from within China.
So like a content
And
story, keep something coming out all the time.
yeah,
Content style
exactly.
story.
But then when bookings stopped coming in, and on the contrary, we started canceling everything, we said, okay, we probably won't be able to keep up for too long. And we're actually talking now about shutting down. We don't think that we'll be able to survive this. Also because we honestly don't know when inbound travel to China is and will come back. So for us, it's almost certain that we'll need to shut down.
That's a tough decision to take. You're not quite there, but it's looking like the writing's on the wall. Do you think you'll go back to Shanghai? Or are you going to stay put in Israel for the time being?
I'm going back to Shanghai. That's my plan. There's a lot still happening there, and my life is there, so I'm not giving up on that just yet. And there might be other things that could be happening and doing. I do know of some local travel operators, specifically in Shanghai, that started operating small group tours just for people who live there locally. So you see some sort of like, the light at the end of the tunnel, and you think, okay, that might still have something to do there. I don't know, to be honest, what I'm going to do when I'm going back. But thank God, thankfully enough, I've got enough partners and connections that I've built throughout the years. And we're all trying to be proactive and figure out what we can do next, what is possible for us to do next. So I'm going to go back and give it another push and give it another try, and we'll see. We'll see what will happen.
What's the tone like locally for you? So I know you're literally come off the plane and you're straight into quarantine then, but
Yeah.
you're still hearing stories from both sides. You heard the stories from Shanghai, you heard the stories from the folks closer to home there. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the difference between what's happening there for you in Israel compared to what's happening in China?
What happened in China, also because as a foreigner who lived there, and despite the fact that I can speak Chinese and read Chinese, there is always this gap of how much you know and how much you're connected with the news, let's say, of what's happening there. And so we kept receiving news of what's going on. And there's one thing that I can say about the Chinese government. They were reacting very fast and very well to a lot of things. So one of the things that they did, for example, regarding to travel agencies, every travel agency in China has to put aside some money for insurance, sort of. And government, the first thing that they did was releasing that. So that local travel agencies will be able to refund money, but not take from within their own cash flow. So that was a good sign. We all got together. The Travel Massive chapter of Shanghai was very active, trying to figure out how we can help each other and what we can do for each other. So there's a lot going on, but a lot of uncertainty as well. While now in Israel, a lot of the things that are happening here, I've been through already. So for me, they're not that much of uncertain. Like I know where this is going. I know what's going to happen. There's a lot of panic among mostly small businesses. No one really knows where it's going to end and how and what will happen to their businesses. Government reaction, of course, is a bit different. Obviously, it's different countries and different systems. But I love it here, the optimism and how much people are doing, trying creatively to fill up the time and do things to help each other. So it's been interesting, but yeah, a bit different.
It's a silver lining moment. I think we've seen it in a number of countries, certainly here, that there is a kind of even though we're apart, there's a coming together where there's, a new spirit of collaboration in different ways. Just like we come together here once a week on Travel Massive to share stories. People have been doing that in different contexts the world over, both locally, on an industry level, everything. So, you know, I like that. And I hope that is something that we learn and we keep into the future. Not to borrow the expression though, but is it, you know, we saw the turning point. We saw the relaxing of divorces or otherwise. We saw the relaxing of the quarantine in Wuhan and some of the major affected areas already. So there has been an inflection point in some situations. But in China, would you say that it's kind of like the day after tomorrow there? Is it a 2.0 kind of economy? Can you give me a sense of how you feel the world looks from a Chinese entrepreneur's perspective?
Interesting question. I think everyone are looking into how we're building up again. It hasn't been easy. It was not easy for anyone, but a lot of help between the big companies, let's say, to smaller companies, government trying to open up as much as they can to allow small businesses to really survive through this. What will happen now? There is the new normal, as we call it. And something incredible about China is how quick they adapt. They just, in a way, they don't stop to linger on, oh my God, this is not working, or what am I going to do with that? But okay, what is working and how can we use that? And so they're more not productive, but how to say, proactive, you can say, but it's not the word. It's more like I'm not sticking in where it's not good. I'm looking at what I can do and moving on with that. So it is the day after, you can say. Okay. A lot of people are going out, a lot of people like out to the streets. There's no requirement of having your masks on in many places anymore. There is an ease on travel ban that was before. So a lot of things are changing, but people are still trying to figure out how they're working within the new boundaries, within the new situation. It's not easy, but people are, they've been home for 2 months. So now they're eager to do something. And in terms of travel, which is, one of the interesting things, there was a survey going on around China talking about what will be the things that you would do when we're over this. And one of the highest thing on the list was going out traveling. So,
Okay. Yeah. One last question. We're live until the top of the hour. I have one question to put to everybody, including yourself. But I do want one more point, if you don't mind. It comes from Jean-Claude there on chat. And the question he asked was, look, there's a lot of small companies, no matter how you measure small. Okay, so not Expedia, not Booking.com, let's say. Not Ctrip. Do you think that there's an opportunity for the larger OTAs with the deep pockets of the moment? They're spending less and less on ads, or maybe they're not. I don't know. Do you think that there's an opportunity there for them to sweep up the market that was once held by companies like yours? Like everybody on the call, do you think that that's going to happen?
I think if it's going to happen, well, probably, the ones with the deeper pocket will definitely, it will be easier for them to survive and, come out of it with better markets and better options. But I do think that if they choose to take more of a leadership kind of role, that they will try to support the smaller ones, maybe all of their local partners, wherever they are. And that's an option. That's an opportunity, actually, if they will take on it and do it. That could change a lot of things in the travel hemisphere.
What I find interesting is actually even the more societal ramification of all of this. If we think about it, this is really the first time that all of us move completely online for everything they do, right?
That's interesting.
And that will just reverberate through travel in a massive way. I'm not sure if there will be a lot of brick and mortar out there anymore afterwards, because even my parents are now learning to do every single thing in their daily life online, right? So even traditional travel companies have to go online in the future. That's, I think, one of the big shifts we'll see.
Well, it might mean an optimization in terms of how, administration takes place. We'll always need bricks and mortar to some point. We'll always need something, and that's the whole point of travel. There's the thing over there. There's the physical part. Johannes, since you joined us there, there's one. I'm going to put the question to you first, but just a quick shout out. We started the very first episode of this title called "Stranded in Berlin" for folks that were in Berlin for ITB, but somehow found themselves stuck in Berlin with little or nothing to do. There are a brave bunch of folks halfway up Mount Everest and all over Nepal. And they've started a similar effort called Stranded in Nepal. It's pioneered by the guys in the Kathmandu chapter of Travel Massive. So just a quick shout out to say that there is a community of people just coming together in the most wonderful way. They're doing amazing work. Check that out over on travelmassive.com. Maria, let's line that up for podcast. Certainly, I want to know a little bit more about it. Quick question, sorry, for you, Johannes, and the same goes to Yael and to I have absolutely drawn a blank. Hamed, sorry. It's at that point in the call. But to yourself first, Johannes, what is so we've had the pain, we're in the shockwave of the problem right now. So we've kind of modeled all of we've done everything we can to model the problems, to model the solutions, to figure out how to, to hibernate or to keep going. With all that in mind, what keeps you up at night? 20 seconds if you can.
I think it's I'm currently in the phase where I'm starting to lose adrenaline. The last 2.5 weeks have been completely insane, right? I mean, 16-hour days, doing adjustment internally to cut down our burn, doing adjustments with our users, communicating with everybody, getting all the info out there. And I'm not, as of coming down from a big rush, thinking, hey, what does this actually mean for my personal life? And that is at this point already kind of switching over to concern me much more than what is happening at work.
Yael, what right now, you've done a lot to stay positive, I think, in spite of a tragedy for your business, but what's keeping you up at night
now? Thinking forward, what are the opportunities? What are the options? What I can do? I told you, I think before, I cut on my news time per day. So now it's limited to 1 hour or 2.5 hours. And I'm just trying to stay proactive, like looking at what is possible for me to do, what I can do with what I have, how I can leverage the things that I do have now. And that's it, basically.
Last word, Hamed, what is the thing that's keeping you up at night?
I mean, we're busting around like 12 hours a day, me and the whole team. Firsthand, I can see them working. It's so motivating. And look, remember, this too shall pass, right? And whatever we do, no company has ever regretted taking action. So there's sunshine, there's rainbow at the end of the finish line. And as soon as COVID ends, and it will end, right? Like everything. And then that's when we're going to bloom. And we're just looking out for the future.
I'm looking forward to seeing the blossoms, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the products look like after the backlogs are cleared for all three of you and the new products come to fruition. Yael, you strike me as somebody that will not be idle very long, and likewise to Johannes and to Hamed. I don't see any, I see silver lining here. I see a lot of pain, but I still see silver lining. You've been watching the live show from Travel Massive. I'd like to thank all of my co-hosts for participating and being so damn honest for the last hour. If you've enjoyed this hour, please subscribe to the Travel Massive podcast, to check us out on YouTube once a week, or to tell your friends. Share this if you found this in any way helpful or interesting. If you're interested in taking part in a future episode, the only way to do that is to drop us a line live at travelmassive.com. We've got some great shows in the works. We've been working really, really hard on some early stage ideas for that. But if you've got any suggestions yourself, or if you'd like to suggest somebody that should be speaking, if not yourself, please drop us a line line live@travelmassive.com. We'll get to Maria and we'll figure out how to get you on. So that's it for me. Thank you so much to all of our guests once more. I think I've covered all bases, Maria. I'm sure I've forgotten to say something absolutely essential on this one, but to you, thanks for doing such a good job producing. And again, to my guests for being so frank and honest. Thank you so much to all of our guests and our attendees. And we'll see you hopefully next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.